Welcome to another edition of Dueling Columnists. I'm Scott Rich.
I'm Chris Cusack.
And I'm Tom Guerin.
And obviously this week is Carolina week. Duke's campus is buzzing, and that's obviously what we're going to talk about today. First, biggest news this week is actually on the UNC side of things. Larry Drew, one of the craziest favorite targets, spontaneously left campus, left UNC's basketball team, is apparently going to transfer. Obviously will not play in the game on Wednesday. How big of a blow is this to the UNC team and to the UNC program as a whole?
Well, I think actually how he left is the biggest story here. I mean, it sounds like the team didn't know he was leaving. A lot of his teammates found out on Twitter that he was leaving. And then Larry Drew's second's dad, I guess Larry Drew, called Coach Williams and told him his son was leaving. It was really this whole big, bizarre story. I think that's going to be a huge issue for them in terms of chemistry and moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the program's been a little bit, we had the Weir twins, who were both McDonald's All-Americans coming in. They were going into their sophomore year transfer to UCLA at the beginning of the season. Roy Williams has taken plenty of heat in the press for some of the things he's had to say at his various media interactions this season. And as you say, Drew's disappearance, if that's probably the appropriate way to refer to it, is it's just odd. It just makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think this sheds a light a little bit on the way UNC's recruits. They go after, the top 10, top 20 recruits every year, and these are the type of guys that when they come in, they expect to play. And when you have #1 recruiting class, when you have 5 McDonald's All-Americans, that's a bit of an exaggeration. But when you have it every year, you can only put 5 players on the court for 40 minutes a game. Williams has actually mentioned this, how all his players come in expecting to play 50 minutes in the 40-minute game. When you have that much talent and that much ego, it's really hard to put a team on the floor that has chemistry. I think that's what you saw.
So what do you think Mike Krzyzewski does well? I mean, you're talking about last year you brought in a guy like Ryan Kelly. You brought in a guy like Mason Plumlee, who had a little bigger role last year, but Kelly really didn't see much of the floor last season. I mean,
yeah, well, Kelly's a little bit of an exception because of the way his season went. He was very sick. He lost a lot of weight before the season, so his development was really stunted. I don't think that's the best example.
But I think there's also a difference between coming in and starting and then losing your starting job and then earning your starting job for the first time. And that's the difference. I think, Ryan Kelly never had that starting job to lose.
Right.
Yeah, once you lose it to a guy younger than you, it's hard to come back.
And the weirdest thing with Drew was, yes, he had lost his starting job to Kendall Marshall, but the last 2 or 3 games before he transferred, he was playing probably his best basketball of his UNC career. He had something like 19 assists and only 2 turnovers off the bench in his previous 3 games. So it wasn't like he was playing poorly, and he was still getting 20 minutes a game. So I really think the problem at UNC at this point with the Weir twins and with Drew is it's an ego issue. And I think that's something that the chemistry and getting people to know their roles, that's something that maybe Coach K does a little bit better than Roy Williams.
Well, let's move on and talk, I think, about Duke's side of the point guard situation, where you have Tyler Thornton now running the point. That's something you've written about before. And I think it's really opened up Nolan Smith on offense. And I wonder if you talk a little about what you wrote at the time and what you've seen in the last couple games.
Yeah, the thing with Tyler Thornton is he's not a player you can look at the stat sheet and see his impact. Even in his first start against Maryland, he played 29 minutes. His stat line was not that great. He only had, 3 or 4 points. He only had 2 or 3 assists. But the thing that he does, like you said, he allows Nolan Smith to play on the wing. Nolan Smith is a much better wing player, a much better shooting guard than he is a point guard, just the way his style of game is. He scores better when he's able to get into a position off the ball to either make a cut to the hoop or get a shot, as opposed to creating it all for himself. That's what Tyler Thornton does, and by doing that, he's opened up a lot of other players. It's no coincidence, I think, that Mason Plumlee's 2 best offensive games in probably the last couple of months have come when Tyler Thornton has started at the point.
I agree with you, but the idea of a freshman point guard is just, the experience at the point guard position is something that I think is really important in college basketball. I think Duke has seen that. I think going back, having experienced point guards has been a big
Kyrie Irving on that problem?
Kyrie Irving and Tyler Thornton aren't the same kind of player. I mean, you guys know that. Kyrie Irving is an explosive, create offense for himself point guard. Tyler Thornton is very methodical.
But that's just what we need at this point in time. That's what Duke needs. They need a methodical point guard who's going to make the team run the offense.
But there's an experience factor.
Thornton is the best defensive guard on the floor. He was better than Kyrie on defense. He's better than Nolan. He can stop the ball, and I think that's almost equally as important.
Yeah, well, I like his lockdown defense. I still don't know if Seth Curry has gotten the opportunity that he deserves to take over that position. He has an assist-to-turnover ratio that's awesome. He has more steals than turnovers. So while he's not the same lockdown defender that Tyler Thornton is, he's definitely able to make plays on the defensive end.
Well, an interesting thing is we're going into UNC week. If you look at Tyler Thornton versus Kendall Marshall, Kendall Marshall, obviously we just talked about, took over Larry Drew's point guard position. Tyler Thornton and Kendall Marshall played during high school, and despite the fact that Kendall Marshall was a high-rated recruit, Tyler Thornton consistently shut him down defensively. That's, I think, an interesting subplot to this UNC game. With these two freshman point guards starting, how are they going to match up, and how is Tyler going to take it, playing against someone who was his rival but has gotten more of the press?
Well, look, Thornton's a competitor. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, having talked to him, and that's what he brings to the table. He's a winner. His teams have always been good, even if he hasn't been, filling up the stat sheet like you mentioned. But again, I don't know if the experience factor is going to become a problem come tournament time, come ACC tournament. I'm a big believer in experience. I think this team learned that last year, and especially at a position that's as important as point guard. I mean, last year we had John Shire. Shire is not an exceptionally true point guard, I don't think, but the experience and leadership that he brought to that position.
Well, I mean, I guess when you talk about the March, there's still the possibility of Kyrie coming back. He got the cast off.
Although Coach K was in the press conference yesterday was very, very pessimistic about the chance of him coming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so either. But at this point, nobody really knows. Yeah. Let's move on to the front court. I think that's going to be the biggest battle, or from my perspective, that's going to be the biggest battle on Wednesday night. I think you've got Tyler Zeller and Henson and Harrison Barnes, who've really done all the scoring for Carolina this season. And I think that's been Duke's biggest weakness on defense. It's been interior play. So,
absolutely. I think they're going to have trouble with Barnes. I mean, there's been a lot of fun made of him, especially from the Duke end, because the whole Duke Carolina commitment thing, and he played really poorly early on in the season. But he is just too talented not to turn it around, I don't think. I mean, preseason All-American.
He's been
exactly.
Scoring,
But I mean, absolutely. And to continue that kind of production, I think, is definitely in his future. I mean, the preseason All-American projection was way optimistic, I think, but I really think he's going to continue to be dangerous, and like you say, with Zeller inside.
Well, the one thing to note there is, yes, Duke has had problems with the front court, but UNC has had problems in the back court, and that's where Duke shines. So it's really going to be a strength versus weaknesses matchup. And both aspects of the game. That's going to be something really interesting to watch. Well, we're running out of time here on Dueling Columnists, so we're going to end it here. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys look forward to the Duke-UNC matchup on Wednesday.